Hi everyone, my name is Abdurrahman Hussein and I recently graduated from the Metropolitan University with a civil engineering degree and I'm an intern with the MHFD district. I'm currently seeking job opportunities, so if anyone would knows of any job opportunities out there, I'm your guy. Today is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Andy Stewart, with the MHFD district, with extensive experience in civil engineering degree. Andy will be presenting the cost of short-sightedness, a 20-year development journey. He will discuss the true costs and consequences of past design decisions and the importance of good criteria in planning. Please join me in welcoming Andy Stewart.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here with you all today. First of all, I just want to if we could all just give a huge round of applause to Abdi. We want to find him a job. I think that's very critical from all our standpoint, but it takes so much courage to get up on this stage in front of a sea of people as an intern. Could we give the interns a huge round of applause? As Abdi mentioned, I'm going to share a story that I titled The Cost of Short-Sightedness. This presentation really highlights, from my perspective, the reality that our decisions today definitely impact our future capital infrastructure needs and budgets in the future. Sometimes in the industry that we work on, decisions that were made prior to us, the decisions we have to live with in the here and now. There's positives and negatives that we have to deal with. And I don't think it'd be a surprise to many people in the audience that a lot of the projects we work on from the district with our local government partners are remedial type projects. And I think us in this profession, we're constantly wanting to be moving the needle towards more proactive projects and implementing those within our communities. Now, before I get going into the meat of this particular presentation, I wanted to let you know I'm not making judgments of the people involved in this project saying that they are or were short-sighted. More so, I think it's a great opportunity and a good demonstration to show how we can use a long-term lens into the decisions we make today by learning through this 20-year development journey. I would have called it a lessons learned, but I think that title of speeches were drastically used. So I just found the clicker. That's good news. Moving on. All right, so in my personal experience, I found that anytime I have to learn a hard lesson, I really retain it better when I can relate it to a personal story. As such, I want to introduce you to someone special to me, and that's my wife, Jamie. I had to dig into the archives. And this is when I realized that I was officially old. There wasn't a digital photo of any of this type of stuff. I found this hidden gem in a box inside another box. But this is Jamie. And it took me a while when I first met this person. I liked what I saw, but didn't have the courage to ever say hello. But this is the interesting thing. I didn't go buy a wedding ring that day, because what I know is that it takes time to learn who somebody is. And in our particular instance, it took me approximately 5 years before I made the decision to put a ring on it. And that's a story for another day. I wanted to show you this gem that I found in the box too. I'm not sure what she saw in me, but obviously I wore a hat when we first met, and then I duped her into obviously going on a date with me. As you can see by the hair, life choices at Red Rocks Community Colleges weren't going in the right direction. But I think the lesson here is pretty simple, and it's going to translate into what I'm going to talk about with this particular project. You really need to date before you get married. And I think the same is true when evaluating and reviewing our projects, whether at capital and or a development project. You need to thoroughly vet and ensure compliance to criteria before you go and approve a project. If you don't, you may end up marrying the wrong person, or in the terms of a project, you may improve something without thinking through all the critical pitfalls that could come from it. But I, through that dating process with Jamie, saw a vision, and it was to get married on top of a mountain. And that's just a joke from a movie, and I know Dave Skudis will pick that one up. But yeah, what I did is I put on a long-term perspective, and I saw that her values and the criteria that I was looking for in a life partner, this is what my life could look like. And this is just a pretty picture of our family in front of the mountains where we live in Colorado. Long road to get there, but I'm going to draw some nuggets out of it. Now let me dive into this project we're going to discuss from the district standpoint. Just to orient you of everyone of where this lies within the district boundaries, we're in one of our northern communities in the city of Brighton. Oh man, you really do have to push hard. And so what I'm going to do is this is a 20-year development journey, and I'm going to walk you through a series of slides. And it's going to fixate, but just to orient you about the location in Brighton, it's in between North 19th Street and Telluride, or just to the right of Telluride Street near Bridge Street or 160th Avenue. And as I move through this progression of slides, I want you to focus on the red box, and that's going to be the preserved development. As you can see, in 2002, there was a planned development that Google shows us with the little streets, even though nothing's been constructed, but it was coming. In 2004, you can see that there's been overlock grading, roadways and infrastructure and utilities have been completed. And for this particular development, what I want you guys to focus on over the next series of slides is that they installed infiltration bases highlighted by the blue circle over here. And as we move through these progression of slides, I just want you to focus in on those. But real quick, before I go any further, we get so unconsciously competent. I think I learned that in an EQ meeting not too long. But detention is essentially, we hear it all the time, but that's where our stormwater inflow comes in and is released through an outlet works and outfall system downstream. An infiltration basin is intended to take stormwater runoff, store the volume, and infiltrate it into the ground. So as I progress over these slides, keep an eye on that. And let's fast forward to 2010. You can see that the preserve development's well underway, and the basins are beginning to fill with water. They've got about the first phase of the project completed in the lower right hand of the corner of this particular development, and water's starting to accumulate. In 2015, the development's about 3/4 of the way built out. Basins are continuing to receive runoff, and there doesn't seem to be any issues with that. The preserve development has finally been completed. We made it to 2017. I think everyone's feeling good, and it's a great amenity to our Brighton community. Fast forward 2 years later, I want you to look at that yellow dot, and you can see a faint little circle. I want you to know, well, what is that? I mean, first question I'd ask, Google Maps shows us great pictures, but what we see is water starting to present on a roadway. And as we focus in a little bit closer, you can see the progression from 2019, 2020, and 2021, that Chavez Street, and one of the primary entrances into the development, has completely been closed off just due to the water going across. And the result is the infiltration basins has ultimately failed. The city had to make the hard decision to shut the road permanently until they could figure out an issue. And the reason they needed to figure out an issue is that the HOA of this particular development had filed a lawsuit against the city and developer, thus forcing their hand to figure out a solution to mitigate what was going on in this particular area. Luckily, Brighton had been investing in their OSP, or their major drainageway outfall system plan for the city. And what this slide shows you is that this particular area with the preserved development over on the right, and you see the South Platte River on the far left side of the screen, there's a blue transition between the South Platte and the green area, and there is a defined baseline outfall system currently in place. The interesting part is the gap shown in the green, there was just farm fields. And out in our eastern communities, this is very common. We have very minimal grade to work with, and that's probably why infiltration basins were ultimately decided to go with here. They didn't have a defined outfall, and there was no infrastructure in place. So the city acted quickly. They entered into an IGA with Mile High Flood District to start to mitigate this lawsuit. We hired Ingenuity at the end of 2020 and quickly designed an outfall system for the preserved development. Just to highlight a few things on this slide, you can see that the roadway closed on the right side near Chavez Street. We needed to construct a temporary open channel, and we had some constraints on the site since these were farm fields in between the existing outfall and the space in between. So these irrigation canals were probably a reason that the project hadn't been constructed from a capital infrastructure standpoint. Just it's expensive, and you got to deal with the irrigation ditch companies, and it takes a lot of time and money to do those things. But what Ingenuity ultimately did was come up with a plan to be able to take this water from the infiltration basins through an open channel. Eventually, we put it into a pipe network down Long's Peak Drive that went into a regional detention facility, highlighted there with my beautiful, what is that hatching that you used to do, but I can't remember what it's called. And then eventually we made its way to North 19th Street where there was a defined outfall. Now, this project, when I'm starting to think about it from a CIP and need standpoint, came as a result of a lawsuit. And that's a very reactionary type project. The city of Brighton, the Mile High Flood District, might not have prioritized this work if it hadn't been for that lawsuit. So this really puts it into that reactionary category. And so one thing that I think when looking at this particular development of the story is what were some of the decisions along the way and what decisions could have been made to maybe get ahead of this potential lawsuit. And that's where criteria will come in, and then thinking a little bit beyond criteria in the future when making these project decisions. So we ultimately got this project constructed. I'm assuming on the right side, and this is one of the more beautiful channels you're going to see in the Mile High Flood District. But I'll guarantee you guys, it was never intended to be pretty. This was meant to be functional, and this is ultimately going to go away once the new development comes in across this land. Here's a quick picture of the post-construction, and this is just the storm sewer outfall that goes into the regional detention facility. And eventually, I was telling Drew about this, it was nice just to show a final completed connection of an outfall system all the way down to North 19th Street. And just like all of us here, we're animal lovers, but even our contractors take that to the 10th degree. They found this nice turtle at the beginning of construction, made a home, and even relocated him back to his natural outfall that he was so comfortable in. So, how does this affect our capital infrastructure budgets? I think decisions that are made a long time ago are always going to have an impact on us today. We need to figure out a way to be agile and react when those things come up. One of the things I see as looking back at this 20-year development journey is some steps that have been made in looking at infiltration basins. And I highlighted some criteria. I know you guys could read that, but I don't want to see you all fall asleep out there because I know it's been a long day already. But Brighton, Commerce City, and some of the district criteria really highlights the importance of scrutinizing when these particular facilities come in to see if it's going to be functional. And me taking a step back and looking at what we could do from criteria, in 2004 when this project was going through its review cycle, it probably met all the criteria, but maybe some of the steps and or questions might not have been asked or entertained by the city at that particular time. I think that looking at a project when it comes in from a review standpoint, we could take a step back and put on a long-term lens of, have we had the appropriate discussions internally with our maintenance staff? Have we vetted, even if it meets criteria, what this could mean on our capital budgets to complement a development coming in and prioritize our work in that particular way? And as much vetting and due diligence you do, just like in the dance of life and in vetting a spouse, you can vet till you're blue in the face, but there's always going to be unforeseen circumstances that arise. And I just want to give kudos to the city of Brighton. They were able to react quickly and get in a project partnership with the district and our contractor, BT Construction and Ingenuity, to mitigate this lawsuit and get these improvements so that we could drain these infiltration basins and avoid any further litigation as a result. And so just kind of tying this back to how I think that if we could take the example of how you vet a future life partner and going through the dating process, you're not going to know everything. We're all going to make mistakes, and we need to have grace along the way. I think what we should learn is that we need to be having those critical conversations internally with our own staff and then external staff of what we can do to better move that needle of ending up in reactionary projects all the time towards implementing, hey, maybe this capital improvement project could have been identified sooner and we could have vetted a little bit more and found cheaper solutions. This ultimately ended up costing $6 million to construct 6,000 linear feet of conveyance. And that was unforeseen. That was unforeseen in the capital budget, and that's disappointing because those dollars could be allocated towards other needs. And if I've learned one thing at looking at all the needs within the communities is it's vast, and we need to take the lens of what can we do now to strategically prioritize the right projects and then vet and review development projects and how those ultimately affect our maintenance and long-term CIP type budgets. And taking it back to the example, I thought I did the thorough vetting through the relationship process, but there's nothing that could have foreseen that Jamie would ultimately be the boss. I vetted and vetted, but that's something that I learned. And so when the boss comes to me and says they want a puppy, I know myself, I'm gonna be weak enough and cave and ultimately get that puppy. So I just wanna highlight real quick, we do our best, we wanna learn from these previous mistakes that we experience and see throughout our project careers and how we evaluate a capital improvement project and move on. But when something arises, like Archibald Hamilton here, on the surface, it looks great. You take that short-sighted lens, it's like, see all the things that a puppy could be, right? What could be wrong with a Cavapoo? It's gonna enhance your life. No one can prepare you for Darth Archie, a little teddy bear looking dog, anxiety-ridden, screen door destroying, a dog that's coming after every treat that I wanna eat after a long day. So we're gonna do our best and we wanna move that needle, and I just challenge us as a profession to be constantly putting on that long-term lens of, it looks good on the surface, but did we have the right term lens to protect our dessert? So next time you're reviewing a project, I hope this resonates with some of you out there in your career. You're gonna face political pressures, you're gonna face review schedules and all the other things that make it so hard. But I just hope you ask yourself, like choosing a life partner, the projects we're putting in the ground today, it's like a marriage that you can't get out of. We're marrying it for the long term. So if you're ready to marry this project and the answer is no, then you're not done dating yet. Thank you very much.